Welcome to Home Rental Module 2, Apartment Rental Application Process. When you're ready to rent that apartment or house, it's time to consider what's going to be involved in the process. Realize that when you go to lease your living space, you may not be the only one who is vying for that apartment. So, how you look on paper may be a big part of whether you find your new home. But, as we will discuss, there are several other factors that will decide if you get to sign on the dotted line of an apartment lease. Step 1. Fill out a rental application. This is the basics. Every location will have some kind of paperwork for you to fill out. If you are going to have roommates or are part of a couple, they will all need to be a part of this process. Nowadays, most established rental companies have this available online. Before you jump in, you should probably have this information handy, as almost all applications will ask for it. You will need a photo ID, employment and income information, your previous addresses, information about any pets that are coming with you, background information, previous rental history, or landlord references and possibly personal or professional references. Step 2. Pay the application fee. This fee covers the additional background and credit checks which will be done on you by your potential landlord. You can ask what this fee covers, and you can also ask what portion of this fee may be refunded to you should you decide to not rent an apartment from this company. Step 3. Credit and background checks. As just mentioned, potential landlords will gather both background and credit checks on prospective tenants. Background checks will go back as far as a landlord desires to check for criminal history. Credit check, of course, to establish an applicant's financial viability as a tenant. If there are red flags on either of these, make sure you come clean before the landlord runs the checks. Sometimes landlords will be willing to work with you in spite of a blemished record. Step 4. Proof of ability to pay. Providing employment and income information on your application or through tax returns or pay stubs may be required by a landlord to show that you have income sufficient to cover the rent payment. You may also be asked to provide bank statements or W-2 forms, depending on your type of employment, to ensure that, should you lose employment, your ability to pay rent won't be impacted. This tends to be the most time-consuming part of the process, which can take a few days. Step 5. Would you need a cosigner? If you know that your credit history is weak and you might not look good to a landlord, you might want to consider getting a cosigner or guarantor. This is a person with good credit who is taking equal legal responsibility for the payment of your rent. This may also be necessary if it's your first time renting and you have no rental or credit history. Step 6. Be agreeable. Referrals from previous landlords can be the tipping point for securing a new rental property. Were you throwing noisy parties every weekend? Or were you neat and quiet? If you are parting on good terms with your current landlord, you might want to consider asking for a letter of recommendation and attach that with your application. It might be the key to set yourself apart from anyone else who might be applying for the same space. Step 7. Have good references. Good personal references are like gold, especially if you don't have a long rental history. Someone who can attest to your character and dependability will go a long way when a landlord doesn't know you at all. For example, you could use someone whose pet you watched as a reference. All of this may seem like a lot of work, but it's worth it if it makes you stand out from the rest. In conclusion, applications may require personal, financial, and background information. Landlords will conduct a background and credit check, and be polite and make sure to have good references.